this privilege and this great reward for staying in the masjid after the prayer and making the adhkar in the masjid.
Brother should stop praying at home and start coming to the masjid. It's 27 times the reward.
If people only knew the reward of praying Fajr and Isha in the masjid, coming to Fajr Salat and Isha Salat, they would come crawling.
In the West, you are so lucky that you live in nearby the Islamic Center or the masjid. It should be your first home, not your second. Is this important enough to keep you busy from attending the Jama'ah in the masjid? Or because the masjid...
Okay, what about women if they decided to go to pray?
Asked about a hadith which I mentioned a few times. The hadith pertaining the virtues of praying Fajr in congregation, then sitting to make adhkar in the same place of the prayer until it is sunrise. Then a few minutes past sunrise, you pray 2 rak'ahs. These rak'ahs are known as Salatul Duha, or the forenoon. Its time is past sunrise and until before the sun moves away from its median, 20 minutes before Zuhr time. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever does so will receive the reward of performing Hajj and Umrah, complete Hajj and Umrah. So he says, would that count the same if I pray Fajr, then I walk home and I say my adhkar until I reach home? No, you will be rewarded, but not the same reward. Because when we examine the text, it says, في مجلسه الذي صلى فيه, where you have offered the Fajr prayer. Because this privilege and this great reward for staying in the masjid after the prayer and making the adhkar in the masjid, for long staying in the masjid. So you will be rewarded definitely for a dhikr, for walking back and forth to the masjid, okay? And for praying duha, there is a great reward for praying duha even if you are not sitting in the masjid, but it is not the same reward as it has been mentioned in the hadith which I discussed earlier.
Stop praying at home and start coming to the masjid. It's 27 times the reward. The Prophet ﷺ informs us in the authentic narration that the obligatory prayer in congregation is better than an individual prayer by 27 times. The angels will pray for you. In an incredibly amazing narration of the Prophet ﷺ, he says that the angels will continue to supplicate for the one who remains in his prayer position so as long as he remains in wudu, saying, Allahumma aghfir lahu, Allahumma arhamhu. O Allah, pardon him. O Allah, have mercy on him.
Pray Fajr in the masjid. And what did Rasulullah ﷺ say? He said, وَلَوْ عَلِمَ النَّاسُ مَا فِي الْعَتَمَةِ وَالصُّبْحِ لَأَتَوْهُمَا وَلَوْ حَبْوَ. If people only knew the reward of praying Fajr and Isha in the masjid, coming to Fajr Salat and Isha Salat, they would come crawling. Crawling. What would make you crawl from your house to Lakimba Mosque? Ask yourself. Let's understand. Let's read between the lines of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah is saying sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if you knew the reward of Fajr Salah and Isha Salah, you would come even if you had to crawl. You will come on your hands and knees. What would make you? Ask yourself. If I say to you, Habibi Allah, if you come crawling from your house, I'm going to give you $5. Will you come? If I make an announcement, anyone that comes crawling from his house to the mosque will take $5. Will anyone come? Crawling? No. If I say $1,000 in Australia, probably, nah, man, are you serious? Who cares? No, I'm not going to come crawling from my house. But if I say $1 million, ya Baba, you will find Sydney like a zoo. Sah? Why? Everyone, $1 million, like I'll come on my head. $1 million. Sah wa la? Rasulullah is saying, if you knew the reward of Fajr, you would come crawling. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means simply that Salat al-Fajr is more valuable than $1 million. It's more valuable than $1 million. Who's saying this? Who is saying this to us? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. What does this mean? It means that Salat al-Fajr is more valuable than $1 million. Have you ever seen a man that lost $1 million?
Brother Abdullah from Sweden. As far as attending the prayer in the masjid, we discussed before that the vast majority of the scholars said that men must attend the congregational prayer in the masjid as long as they have a way to attend it. They can go. So 2 kilometers is not a long distance provided you drive. Like, if any person would like to pick up a Coke or water or whatever ships from the nearby gas station 5 kilometers, they do not even think about it. They put themselves in the vehicle, they turn it on and they run, pick it up and come back. They can do that several times a day. If you know it's a prayer time, whether you hear the adhan or you don't, and you have the masjid nearby, you should attend the prayer in the masjid. If the masjid is farther away from you and it would take you 15, 20 minutes to drive because it's like 10, 15 kilometers, then try to attend it as much as you can whenever it is possible. But 2 kilometers, you should attend the prayer in the masjid. Especially people who are living in the West. You are so lucky that you live in nearby the Islamic Center or the masjid. It should be your first home, not your second. Sitting at home and watching the Super Bowl. Is this important enough to keep you busy from attending the Jama'ah in the masjid? Or because the masjid is 5 minutes away from home? There was a companion who used to live the farthest from the Masjid al-Nabawi, and he used to walk. So some people asked him, why don't you buy a donkey or get a ride? He said, no, by Allah, it is dearer to me to walk, because he knows that every footstep that he takes towards the masjid, it provides him with dual benefits. It erases one of his sins, and it raises him in ranks 1 degree. The Prophet ﷺ once was told about him, he said, indeed, the reward has been confirmed for him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Yasin, إِنَّا نَحْنُ نَكْتُبُ مَا قَدَّمُوا وَآثَارَهُمْ. Verily, we record whatever they have offered, whatever they've done, and their traces, their footsteps. That is recorded. So the Prophet ﷺ put a lot of emphasis on praying in the masjid, whether it's Fajr or any other prayer.
Okay, what about women if they decided to go to pray? Would that be sufficient? Would that be accepted? The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, to women that their prayers is better if they pray or offer it at home. But he also instructed and ordered the men not to prevent women if they want to go to the masjid. So now, in one hadith, the Prophet prohibits men who are the guardians of women to prevent women from attending the congregational prayer in the masjid. لا تمنعوا إماء الله مساجد الله. Okay, but at the same time, though women have the permission to go, the Prophet said that praying in their homes is better for them. So does this cascade also to the haram? We know that praying in the haram, one prayer is equivalent to 100,000 prayers elsewhere. So if a woman goes for Umrah with her husband and she wants what's more rewarding, she likes going down to the haram and praying in the masjid and seeing the Kaaba, etc. But she wants what is good for business. She wants money, she wants hasanat, she wants good deeds. So we tell her that praying in your hotel room is far better for you and greater for your reward. And this was mentioned clearly in the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when a woman came to him and said, O Prophet of Allah, I love to pray in your masjid. So he said to her, I know that you love to pray in my masjid, but praying in your house is better than praying in my masjid. And praying in your home is better than praying in your house. And praying in your inner home is better than praying in your home. And praying in your chambers is better than praying in your inner home. So the Prophet is making it tighter and tighter to indicate that a woman's prayer, far away from people's gaze and the possibility of non-mahram seeing her, is much better than praying in the masjid of the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is 1,000 times better than praying elsewhere other than the masjid of Mecca.